Nearly half of Americans wouldn't be able to handle a $1,000 emergency without borrowing money. Pause for a second and really think about that. One car repair, one medical bill, one broken appliance at the wrong time. For millions of people, any of these situations instantly turn into a financial scramble. Credit cards come out, calls to family get made, and tough decisions about which bills can be delayed start piling up. This isn't a rare scenario. It's everyday life for a huge portion of the population. What makes it more concerning is that most people already know what they're supposed to do. The advice is everywhere. Build an emergency fund, save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Prepare for a rainy day. It's simple. It's repeated constantly. And yet reality tells a different story. And a recent data from the Federal Reserve shows that only about half of adults have enough savings to cover even 3 months of expenses. Even more alarming, nearly 1 out of every 3 adults couldn't cover 3 months of living costs at all. Not by selling assets, not by borrowing, not even by draining long-term savings. Traditional financial advice presents cash as a safety net, something that protects you when life goes wrong. That's true, but it's only part of the picture, because the real impact of having cash goes far beyond emergencies. It quietly reshapes how you think, how you act, and how you make decisions in every part of your life. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. Here's why it matters. Researchers from Princeton and Harvard explored what happens to the human brain when money is scarce. Their findings. Hay, published in Scarcity, Why Having Too Little Means So Much, uncovered something striking. Financial pressure doesn't just create stress, it actively reduces your ability to think clearly. When your mind is occupied with concerns like rent, groceries, and upcoming bills, your mental capacity shrinks. There's less room for strategy, less room for planning, less room for anything beyond immediate survival. Decisions that require long-term thinking become harder. Your focus shifts toward the short term, not by choice, but because your brain simply doesn't have the bandwidth to think further ahead. The researchers describe this as tunneling. Your attention locks onto the most urgent problem in front of you while everything else fades into the background. Career growth, health decisions, future investments. These things don't disappear, but they become distant, almost invisible. All your energy gets consumed by getting through the current moment. This isn't about discipline. It's not about willpower. It's a measurable effect of financial stress on the brain. Now imagine a completely different situation. You have 6 months of expenses saved in a high-yield account. The money is there, accessible, and reliable. That knowledge stays with you everywhere, at work, during negotiations, when opportunities show up, and it changes everything. That financial cushion removes the constant pressure running in the background of your mind. It creates space to think clearly, space to plan ahead, space to make better decisions. Instead of reacting out of urgency, you begin acting with intention. That shift is subtle, but powerful. It influences choices you don't even realize you're making. Take your job, for example. Right now, the average time it takes to find a new job in the U.S. is close to 6 months. And for many people, especially those in specialized fields or later stages of their careers, it can take even longer. Without savings, this reality becomes a silent constraint. You stay in environments that drain you because leaving feels too risky. You tolerate situations you shouldn't accept. You settle for less than you're worth because the alternative feels uncertain. But when you have cash reserves, the dynamic changes. You're no longer trapped by immediate necessity. You have options, and knowing you have options changes how you show up in every conversation. Picture 2 employees working in the exact same role, same position, same workload, same manager. On paper, they are identical, but there's one critical difference. One has 8 months of living expenses saved. The other is surviving paycheck to paycheck. When review season arrives, both ask for a raise. The first person approaches the conversation calmly. There's no urgency, no pressure. He can question the initial offer, reference market data, and ask for time to revisit the discussion. If the company doesn't meet expectations, he can quietly begin searching for better opportunities, without rushing, without panic, and without settling. The second person walks into the same conversation with a completely different mindset. Every word carries risk. Pushing too far feels dangerous. Asking for more feels uncomfortable. Or the possibility of losing income, even temporarily, sits in the background of every decision. So the request becomes smaller. The acceptance comes quicker, and settling happens almost without realizing it. Stretch this difference over a decade and the gap becomes enormous. Two people with the same ability, same effort, same experience, but vastly different financial outcomes. The only real difference? One had a cushion. That cushion doesn't just sit there. It pays dividends through confidence alone, because cash quietly flips the balance of power. When you know you can survive months without income, your entire approach to work changes. You're no longer negotiating from fear. You're negotiating from choice. You can challenge unfair expectations. You can stand your ground. You can take smart risks, speaking up, sharing ideas, pushing back when something doesn't make sense. Not because you plan to leave, but because you could. And that single shift changes how others perceive you and how you perform. But this advantage doesn't stop at your job. It extends into nearly every financial interaction you'll ever have. Take real estate as an example. A large-scale analysis from researchers at UC San Diego revealed a clear pattern. Buyers who pay in cash consistently secure lower prices. On average, they pay around 10% less than those relying on financing. More recently, that gap has hovered close to 9%, more than double what it was just a few years ago. At today's median home price, that difference translates into tens of thousands of dollars saved. And it's not because sellers are being generous, it's because cash removes uncertainty. When financing is involved, deals can fall apart, loans get denied, appraisals come in low, unexpected issues surface at the last minute. Each failure forces the seller to restart the entire process. Cash removes those risks entirely. There's no waiting for approvals, no dependency on banks, no surprises. The transaction becomes simple, fast, and reliable. And for many sellers, that certainty is worth accepting a lower price. Now, most people won't be buying homes with cash, but that's not the point. The real takeaway is this: cash strengthens your position in almost every negotiation. When your car breaks down, you're not forced into whatever financing terms are available. You can explore better deals, negotiate confidently, or walk away entirely. When renting, being able to pay up front makes you more attractive. When dealing with contractors, immediate payment can open the door to better pricing. When negotiating with lenders or creditors, you're no longer dependent. You have alternatives, and that's what gives you leverage. It shows up in small moments, over and over again. Small advantages that stack, compound, and quietly improve your financial outcomes. But there's another side to this that most people never think about. When you don't have cash, life becomes more expensive. Economists call this the poverty premium. It's a hidden cost, one that slowly drains money from people who can least afford it, and it affects far more than people realize. Now look at what everyday life actually feels like without a financial cushion. Every decision becomes reactive. When something goes on sale, you can't take advantage of it. Buying in bulk requires upfront cash you don't have, so you end up paying higher prices over and over again, week after week. Insurance works the same way. Paying annually often comes with meaningful discounts, but without available cash, you're locked into monthly payments, quietly paying extra just for the lack of liquidity. Even basic maintenance becomes more expensive. Instead of replacing worn tires early or fixing small issues, problems get ignored until they turn into emergencies, and emergencies always cost more. Time pressure makes things worse. You can't wait for better deals. You can't compare options. You need solutions immediately, which means you accept whatever is available in the moment. Opportunities inside your own workplace can slip away too. Benefits that require upfront contributions, like retirement matches or flexible spending accounts, offer guaranteed returns. But without the ability to adjust cash flow, those benefits go unused. The result is subtle but powerful. All these small disadvantages stack together. Over the course of a year, the extra cost of living without cash quietly grows into thousands of dollars. The pattern becomes clear. The less money you have, the more expensive life becomes. But when cash is available, that entire dynamic flips. You stop reacting. You start choosing. Purchases are no longer driven by urgency. They're guided by value, and something important happens. The emergency fund doesn't just protect you from rare crises, it stops the constant, invisible financial drain happening in the background of everyday life. But there's another layer to this that most people never consider. Cash isn't only defensive, it's also offensive. It gives you the ability to act when opportunities appear, and opportunities don't wait. A great job opening shows up without warning. Market downturns create investment opportunities at the exact moment most people feel unprepared. Business ideas require funding now, not months later. Without cash, these moments pass by. You watch them happen, knowing they make sense, but being unable to act. When markets drop sharply, those with liquidity step in and buy at discounted prices. Everyone else watches from the sidelines. By the time conditions improve, the window is already closed. The same pattern shows up everywhere. An opportunity to invest in a promising business appears, but there's no capital to participate. A property becomes available below market value, but speed is required and hesitation means losing it. These aren't rare events. They happen repeatedly over time. For most people, they feel like missed chances. For those with cash, they become real options. And over years, that difference compounds into dramatically different outcomes. But the most overlooked benefit of cash has nothing to do with transactions. It's about clarity, because not every decision involves negotiation. Some of the most important choices happen internally, and financial pressure distorts those decisions more than people realize. Think about major life moves. Pursuing additional education. Without financial stability, the cost feels heavier. The temporary loss of income feels riskier. Long-term gains become harder to evaluate because the short-term strain dominates your thinking. Or consider leaving a situation that isn't working. Financial ties, shared expenses, housing, starting over become barriers that keep you stuck longer than you should be. Or relocating for better opportunities. The transition itself requires resources, and without them, even positive changes start to feel impossible. In each case, the decision isn't just about what's right, it becomes filtered through one question: can I afford the risk? And when that question dominates, the answer often leads to compromise. Over time, those compromises stack. They shape your path, they limit your options, and eventually, they create a version of life that feels smaller than it could have been. Cash changes the equation in a fundamental way. It removes fear from your decisions. Instead of constantly asking, can I afford this risk? You start evaluating choices based on what actually makes sense: your career path, your environment, your long-term direction. So the question becomes, how do you build that kind of financial cushion? The common benchmark is simple: 3 to 6 months of living expenses. At first glance, the number can feel overwhelming. If you spend $5,000 a month, that's anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 set aside. But that number isn't built overnight. It's built through consistent, repeatable behavior. Start by getting clear on your real monthly expenses. Housing, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, and minimum debt payments, everything required to maintain your current life. Once you have that number, multiply it by 3. That's your first milestone. 6 months comes later. Next comes automation. Instead of relying on discipline, remove the decision entirely. Set up a recurring transfer that moves money into savings the moment your income arrives. It doesn't need to be large. What matters is consistency. A few $100s a month compounds faster than most people expect when it happens automatically. Then consider where that money sits. High-yield savings accounts currently offer returns in the range of 4 to 5% annually, far above traditional accounts. That means your emergency fund isn't just sitting idle, it's quietly growing while remaining fully accessible. The money is still liquid, still safe, still available within days when needed. You're simply earning something in return for holding it. At the same time, accessibility needs balance. If it's too easy to spend, it will be spent. If it's too hard to reach, it defeats the purpose. A simple solution is separation. Keep your emergency fund in a different account, ideally with no debit card attached. Access requires a deliberate action, initiating a transfer and waiting briefly. That small delay is often enough to prevent impulsive decisions. Clarity also matters. Not every expense qualifies as an emergency. True emergencies threaten your health, your housing, or your ability to earn income. Everything else, sales, convenience, boredom, doesn't meet that standard. Without clear boundaries, the fund slowly erodes through justified exceptions. With clear boundaries, it remains intact when it's truly needed. As this process unfolds, financial stability tends to develop in stages. The first stage is simple survival. Saving even $1,000 to $2,000 creates a buffer that breaks the cycle of constant financial emergencies. No more relying on credit cards or short-term loans for every unexpected expense. The second stage builds real protection. Reaching 3 months of expenses transforms major disruptions. Job loss becomes manageable. Unexpected costs become solvable. You gain time, the most valuable resource during uncertainty. The third stage is where things truly change. At 6 months or more, the mindset shifts. You're no longer reacting to circumstances. You're directing them. Decisions become proactive instead of defensive. The mental energy once consumed by financial stress becomes available for growth, planning, and opportunity. How long this takes varies. For some, it happens quickly. For others, it's a multi-year process. But the exact timeline isn't the point. Progress is. Every additional month of expenses saved increases flexibility and reduces pressure. There's also a common criticism worth addressing. Some argue that keeping cash in savings is inefficient. Why settle for modest returns when investments can grow much faster? From a purely mathematical perspective, that argument holds. Over time, invested money does outperform cash. But this comparison misses the purpose entirely. An emergency fund is not designed to grow aggressively. It's designed to be dependable. Its role is stability, accessibility, certainty. Because markets are unpredictable, they can drop sharply and quickly. We've seen declines of 30% happen within weeks. If your safety net is tied to those fluctuations, you risk needing it at the exact moment it's worth the least. And that forces decisions you don't want to make. Selling at the bottom, locking in losses, reducing your protection when you need it most. Cash avoids that risk entirely. It doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't depend on timing. It's simply there, ready when you need it. And that reliability is what makes it powerful. The amount sitting in your account today will still be there tomorrow. No volatility, no timing risk, no need to check the market when something breaks and you need money immediately. It's predictable. And that's exactly the point. Think of it like the foundation of a building. You don't expect a foundation to generate returns, you expect it to provide stability. Your emergency fund serves the same purpose. It holds everything up. Once that base is solid, then you can focus on growth, investing, taking risks, building wealth. But without that base, every risk becomes dangerous. Because the cushion comes first. It's what makes all other financial decisions possible. The real cost of not having cash isn't always obvious. It rarely shows up as one major collapse. Instead, it builds slowly through small compromises. You stay in a job that undervalues you because leaving feels uncertain. You accept an offer too quickly because you can't afford to wait. You delay taking care of your health because the expense feels inconvenient. You rely on high-interest debt to handle unexpected costs, and those payments follow you for years. You pass on opportunities to grow, skills, education, advancement, because the upfront investment feels out of reach. Individually, these decisions seem minor, but over time they stack, and those small decisions begin to shape your direction. A few years later, the gap becomes visible. Lower income, slower progress, fewer options. And when you look back, the pattern is clear. Many of those decisions were driven by one thing: financial pressure. Cash interrupts that cycle. It creates breathing room. It allows you to choose based on long-term value instead of short-term relief. You can invest in your own growth. You can negotiate without hesitation. You can take risks that are calculated, not forced. And when something goes wrong, you recover without panic. Because of that, an emergency fund becomes more than protection. It becomes permission. Permission to act with intention. Permission to think long-term. Permission to build your life strategically instead of reacting to it. The process itself is straightforward. Know your numbers. Understand exactly what it costs to maintain your life each month. Set a target. 3 months first, then expand to 6. Automate the process so progress happens without constant effort. Keep the money in a place where it grows modestly but remains accessible. Add just enough friction so it isn't spent impulsively. And then observe the shift. As the cushion grows, your thinking begins to change. Decisions feel different, negotiations feel different, even risks feel different, because walking away is no longer a threat, it's an option. Over time, something deeper happens. Your entire relationship with money evolves. You stop operating from scarcity, and you start operating from choice. And that shift, more than anything else, is where the real value lies.